Good day, and thank you for joining us for the Wow Business Booster webinar series. Boy, that's a hard thing to get your tongue around. Today, my name is Lynda Kavanagh. I'm with Wow Communications and Training, and today we're going to talk to you a little bit about kickstarting your marketing. And I like to call it the A, B, C, and D of marketing, which means you don't need to know the whole alphabet. You just need to know the four really important things. So we're going to talk about the difference between branding, marketing, and sales. A lot of people are still confused about this. And really, folks, if you don't understand this, then what happens, you end up doing things backwards, and that ends up just costing lots of time and money. Then B, we're going to talk about who you're talking to. And that's really trying to define that target audience. You cannot talk to everyone, well, unless you've got billions and billions of dollars. So as small businesses, we have to really narrow down who it is that we're talking to so we get the biggest bang for our efforts. And then C, what are you saying to them? You know, you can understand the difference between branding, marketing, and sales, and you can really have your target audience defined. But boy, if your message isn't something that's really going to motivate those people to pay attention, then you're in trouble. And then D, how are you going to reach them? So again, you can have A, B, and C done properly, but if you don't use the right medium to reach these people, then guess what? All your efforts are down. So you really do need to have all these A, B, C, D, and D coordinated to make it work. So let's get started. The first thing, though, I want to show you is this is what your screen looks like. In case you've never been on a webinar before, I just want to kind of bring this to your attention. So you probably got something like this on your screen somewhere. If you don't, you definitely will see this little arrow. And if you click on this arrow, then this expands. And this is your control panel. And it really just tells you that you're logging in with your computer. Your microphone is muted, so you can talk, your phone rings, the rest of us are not going to hear you. This is probably the most important part for you to pay attention to, and this is where you type in your question. So anytime that you've got a question, we're going to do the questions at the end, but don't wait until the end. Just anytime that a question pops into your head, type it in there, hit the send button. It's going to come over onto my screen over here, and I'll read the questions out to people. And so sometimes what happens is the questions are really good for helping other people. They maybe have got a question, but they're a little too shy to type it in. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Now, if you're using a tablet, this is an example of an iPad. When you want to ask questions, you just click on this question here, and a little box like this will open up, and you type in your question, hit the send. At the end of this webinar, then all you do is you click over here and it'll close it. And if you're using your desktop, you just go to File and End Webinar. So those are kind of the basics of how to get around on here. Really, you are going to get the recording of this after. So my advice to you is just sit back, listen to what we talk about, absorb the concepts, because when you get the recording, you can maybe spend a little bit more time on each of the sections and say, okay, this is what we talked about here. How can I adapt my business to that? Keep in mind that you also will receive a 20-minute online session. It'll be very similar kind of online experience as we're doing with this. And you've got 20 minutes to ask me whatever questions you want to ask me about your branding, sales, and marketing, or business in general, if I can help you on that. So make sure that you put Lynda at wowcommunications.ca into your contacts so that it won't go to spam when I send you the recording and when I send you a query about when we want to set up that 20-minute. That 20-minute coaching session doesn't have to be like right now. You've got 6 months to decide when you want, when you've got those burning questions that you've got 20 minutes to talk to me about. And so you've got some flexibility on that. So let's first talk a little bit about the difference between branding, marketing, and sales. Folks, one of the things you have to think about when it comes to branding is think about like when you're building a house. And you're first going to say, okay, we're going to build a house. You start with a blueprint. And that blueprint dictates, is it going to be a 1-story? Is it going to be a 2-story? Is it going to be 1 story and then maybe eventually 2 stories? Is it going to have 5 bathrooms in it or 4 bedrooms in it? Is it going to have a fireplace in it? All of those things are what we want to put in this house. And then once we build that blueprint, we start with the foundation. And we build that foundation so that it's strong enough to hold that house for a long, long time. So if we don't build that, if we don't plan that, oh yeah, eventually we're going to put a 2nd story on that, and we don't plan that, then when we put our foundation down, guess what? It's not going to be strong enough for when we do eventually want to build onto that house, build up or build out. So that's what your brand is, folks. It really is the foundation of your business. What is the core reason that your business exists? And this is the hard part, I think, for entrepreneurs. What's your business going to be like in 5 years? What's your business going to be like in 10 years? Because you really do have to build your business that way. Not only for, you may say, well, I don't want to be doing this business in 10 years. Okay, well, that's fine. But somebody else may buy your business and continue to run it for 10 years. So that's what your brand is all about. It's not to do with the marketing and sales part of it. This is really the core philosophy. Now, if you really aren't sure that you've got a brand, that you haven't got a promise, you haven't got key core reasons why your business exists, we have webinars that coming up. We've got a couple that we've already done that you really do want to take that, because everything else spins from that. And what you find, if you're spending a lot of money and time on marketing and sales and it's not working, then usually we can go back and say it's because you haven't defined your brand well enough. So once you defined your brand, the second step is the marketing, and that's kind of the framing of it, right? We know what the house is going to look like. We've built a foundation that's strong enough, and so now what we have to do is we're just going to frame it. And so marketing is what drives demand for your business. All the things that you do that drives demand. You may go to a networking function and talk to people about that. That's driving demand. You may do some social media. That's driving demand. Now, sales, on the other end, sales is where you take a look at that marketing, and the marketing says, what do I want to do for the next year? Let's say you're marketing, you're framing your business for the next year, and you say, well, I want to increase sales by 10%. Okay, well, that's good, but that's not really very defined. We have to really define that further. But however you're going to drive your business to increase sales by 10% is what sales activity you're going to do. So let's say that you're starting off and you're saying, I just want to educate people on what my business is because it's quite different. Well, that's a drastic different approach than I want to increase sales by 10% or 20% or 50%. If you don't have that defined in your marketing, then your sales becomes very sporadic. We call it shotgun marketing, because you don't really know what your purpose and what your objective of sales is. It's just like, get me money. Well, of course we want money, but that's not good enough. You have to have an objective of why, and that's your marketing. So the problem that I see over and over and over again is that people do the sales before they figured out their brand and before they even have decided what their marketing objectives are. And they do everything backwards. By doing everything backwards, what happens is you start saying, I hate sales, I'm getting lots of no's, people don't like me. It's just an ugly experience. So I want you to think about this, folks. Are you going in the right steps, or are you doing things backwards and working with your sales first? Second thing, B, who are you talking to? I've always said, if you don't know, don't guess, because anytime you guess in your business, you're going to waste something. In reality, as entrepreneurs, we have two commodities. We have our time and we have money. If you don't know who you're talking to and you're guessing, I think that people will like this message. I think that they'll go to my website. I think they're using this social media. If you do all of those things, that's guesswork, and guesswork is going to cost you something. And this is where I find that people get really, really frustrated, is that they're doing all this stuff, sales activity, and they probably haven't defined their marketing objectives, but they're guessing at a whole bunch of things, and then they get frustrated, and then they just stop. It's like an ostrich. They stick their head in the sand, and they say, I'm just not doing anything anymore. Well, that's not good, because you have to do something to get people to pay attention to come in and do business with you. So as far as I'm concerned, you never, ever have enough research on your target customer, because your potential customers are always changing. Not only are they changing, the consumer behavior of the public is changing. And so there's different people coming into your wheelhouse at different times. And so what you want to be able to do is have that research out there all the time. So you say, hey, I'm seeing this group of people are starting to pay attention to my needs. And so therefore, I better start understanding what that group of people is. Our next newsletter, we've got a really interesting comparison of the baby boomers to the millennials, to the Gen X, to the Gen Zs, just to see the different things that they do. And it's amazing. So if you're thinking that you're targeting baby boomers and you really aren't, you should be targeting millennials. Well, I can tell you, they're way drastically different people. And you can't try to craft a message that's going to market to both of those people. It just isn't going to work for either of them. So then you waste money, you get frustrated. So you're constantly doing that research. And again, you never know when new target customers are entering your workspace. And so you always want to be researching. Who are you talking to? You have to be objective. And I find this is probably the hardest thing. I'm an entrepreneur. It's hard for me to be objective. I have an advisory board that I run everything by before I do anything because I can't be objective. But one of the things that we do as small businesses, we forget that it's not about us, it's all about them. And when I say them, I mean your target customer. Because no matter what you do, if your target customer doesn't like it, they're not going to buy. And so we sometimes get into our little hole of saying, well, I've got this great service and people will love it and that, but we forget to take that owner's hat off and put the customer's hat on and look at it from a different and totally objective way. So if you're a sole proprietor and you don't have other people that you're working with, try to find something like an advisory board or some really key, strong business people that will tell you the truth if you're going off in the wrong direction. Sometimes it's very useful to talk to past customers that can be very objective. And surprisingly enough, past customers will tell you what you're really good at, maybe what you're not so good at, or what you could be doing. It's amazing if you ask your customers about helping you market your business further. It's just amazing how helpful they become. So I love this picture because it really addresses what a lot of people try to do. They try to change people's behavior to fit their business. And here's a good example. We see this happening all the time. Some bureaucrat has said, we're going to build a park or we're going to build anything, and this is where the sidewalks are going to go because this is the easiest way for us to do this. Well, they don't think about consumer behavior. And they don't think, well, the consumers really actually walk to the corner there and then turn and walk the other way? No, they'll make their own path. And so, folks, you can't think that you know what your customers want. You've got to do the research to find out what it is that they want. As I mentioned last slide, if you've got current customers, ask them on a repeated basis. Do a survey and send it out. Tell them that it can be anonymous. They can just answer some questions for you. Put it in a self-addressed envelope, put the stamp on. Sometimes you feel you have to be strong on shoulders, but boy, I'm telling you, those people will tell you. And if you're just starting off and you don't have that luxury of having past customers, then you've got to do that research. You've got to do some sort of survey. You've got to do some sort of digging online to find some research out there. Stats Canada's got some great research. Media people have great research. You just got to do it. But to change people's behavior is extremely expensive to do. And you'll see that with some of these really big companies. They will market something for probably close to a year in just the concept of baby steps of changing people's behavior until they really launch the product of what they want people to buy. So people have warmed up to that. For small business, if you've got a really different or unique type of business, I got to tell you, folks, try to find what their behavior they're doing and then adapt your business model to that. Not changing the main part of your business, but adapt to how these people are buying. Because to change them, it's crazy expensive, folks. I like to use this picture. This is a place in my hometown. It's kind of an old picture. We rebuilt it. It looks much nicer than this. But every August, we have a thing called Heritage Days. And what happens at Heritage Days is we bring the community together to just celebrate the different cultures that we have, and not only in Canada, but in our own community. And you can go inside, and they've got booths where you can buy food, or they've got booths where people, any culture wants to sell something that's particular to their area, Chinese silk or Dutch shoes, Dutch cheese, whatever somebody wants to set up a booth, they can, as long as it has to do with a culture. And so, as you can see here, there's a whole mess of people standing in line to get into this place. Now, this doesn't open until 11 o'clock, and I took this picture about 9 o'clock. So we live in a really crazy, busy world. What would possess people to stand in line for 2 hours to get into this place? Well, I'm there taking a picture because one of the things that I like is pierogies, but I just don't like making them. I can't seem to have the patience to make them these little teeny round things. First time I made them and they all blew up in the pot when I was boiling them. I said, that's it. Never making pierogies again. So I like to go there because the pierogies, these little bubbles have been baking these pierogies for 6 months, but they go fast because other people like pierogies. So I like to go early because I don't want to miss out on those pierogies. Now, other people go because this is quite a different, unique thing. Other people go because it's a great social event. You see lots of people there. It's very well received. Other people go just because they want to understand the culture. In this big facility, they've got an area, a dance kind of floor where people can dance, showed Irish dancing and different juggling and everything. And again, anything to do with the culture. And so it's a great entertainment. It only costs $2 to get in. So it's very inexpensive to have a full day of entertainment. So now there's a variety of reasons why somebody would stand in line here to do this. And my question to you is, why would somebody stand in line to do business with you? Because that's going to come down to, who are you talking to? Why would someone stand in line to do business with you? Unique, because everybody can say unique. And my definition of unique could very well be different than your definition, could very well be different than your target customer's definition. So if you go out and say, we are so unique, and they come and do business with you and they find out you aren't unique, now all of a sudden you've got a public relations problem. Quality. That's another word that people just don't believe quality anymore because they've been lied to. Same with customer service. People don't believe customer service. So don't say that you've got quality products because people won't believe you because they've been lied to. Don't say that you've got great customer service because people actually have to experience you before they can say whether your customer service is good. So that's just a throwaway statement. You almost have to prove it. So what is it that would make these people stand in line to do business with you? For us, we found early on that the reason people did business with us because they became very frustrated when they tried to do their branding, their marketing, their sales themselves. They were doing it backwards. And so they would come to us and we would walk them through it. We train them how to do it themselves. And then they go, wow, I'm not frustrated anymore. So we learned who are we talking to by being able to find out what it was that the problem that we were solving. And then we talked directly to the people that we knew were frustrated. We wouldn't talk to people who were doing the really good jobs of branding, marketing, and sales. We don't even talk to those people. We talk to the people that we know that have that frustration. So that's a question I really do want you to think about and answer. Who are you talking to? Why would somebody stand in line to do business with you? So trying to define who we're talking to, we first have to look at that target audience. We start with the basics demographic. Everybody has this in their business plan, this demographic information. That means if you're a consumer, if you're going after consumer marketplace, or even if you're going after businesses, if you're going after businesses, there's still a decision maker, a person that's going to make that decision. So if you look at these pictures here, we've got two nurses. They're both about the same age. They both have 2 kids, and they both have a dog. So in first blush, we look at that and say, boy, that's a pretty good definition of a target audience. Nurses, 2 kids, 2 dogs, because we can figure out those nurses are the same age. They've got probably the same income because we know nurses' incomes. I mean, if we dig deep enough, we can figure that out. We know that some of the challenges that they have if they've got 2 kids and if they've got a lifestyle where they've got dogs. So we can start to really kind of define who that target audience is based on demographics. But you know, folks, that's not enough. We got to take into geographic. So this dark-haired gal, she lives in Whitehorse. The blonde, she lives in Toronto. Can you tell me that they're the same creatures? They've got 2 kids, a dog, and they're nurses. But do they have different problems because they live in? Of course they do. So, I mean, even if you're looking at your community, all you do is market to your community. Well, then we know that if you could break your community up into different segments, there's different needs of different areas. There's always going to be the really rich section. They've got a different need. There's always going to be the poorer section. They've got different needs. So we've got to add geographics into when we're trying to really figure out who we're talking to. We've got to add the geographics into that. And then the next thing, and this is one of the things that a lot of people don't put in, is psychographics. And psychographics is personality, values, interests, lifestyles, hobbies, those kind of things. And so if you look at the gal that's the nurse that Star cared, she loves to be outside all the time. Anything to do with outdoors, she's out there. The blonde, on the other hand, she's an indoor gal. She likes to cook and bake and do crafts and scrapbooking and all those kind of things. So now can you see we're starting to see a different picture. If we just rely on the demographic information, we could be out there starting to market to them, creating a message to them, creating the mediums that we should be using to, when in reality we have not defined them enough. And so chances are your messages are going to go unrecognized because you haven't narrowed them down enough. Adding geographic in, okay, what are the problems that they have, being that they live in those geographic areas, and then adding psychographics in. So demographics is just not enough. We've got to add the geographics and the psychographics into this. So I want to just really beat on home to you about the psychographics. On this side, you can see demographic sample. Female, 1834, married, 2 kids, lives in Whitefish, Montana. Household income is less than $75,000. Okay, that's demographic information. Now, let's look to psychographic information. This person is concerned with preserving natural resources, access sustainable materials when they're buying their clothing, willing to spend a little bit more on clothing that minimizes environmental impacts, enjoys outdoor activities, favorite social networks are Instagram, Pinterest. So do you see the difference now? If we just went with this demographic information, probably the message that we created would not have that impact if we started talking about environmental issues and health issues and activity issues. So we wouldn't probably, on this demographic information, we would maybe be using the wrong mediums to reach them. So psychographics is one of the areas that many small businesses don't even know the word, but have never even considered putting that into the narrowing of their target audience in. But it's absolutely essential. So again, if you're frustrated that you've been thinking, okay, this is who our target demographics are, I think you want to take it one step further, geographics, and then really one step further in understanding the psychographics. And a lot of this information, again, you can start to analyze your current customers. We do a webinar on personas that's coming up a couple of months from now. And this is where we really dig into developing this target audience. And it's a full 45 minutes. It's part of a full day workshop that we do for people in developing their brand and trying to figure out who their target audience is. But we really dig into what makes these people tick. So if you have current customers, start analyzing those people. What are some similarities? Try to put them into segments. Well, this group of people, they like this and they kind of say this and they did this when we did services for them. But then there was this other segment that they did some of that, but then they also did this and this. Right there, you're starting to segment your audience. And that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. And then from that, you develop what we call personas. So start taking a look at that. Now, if you're starting off in business and you haven't actually got any customers yet, then this is the research that you would have to do. And again, sometimes that research means you've got to actually sit down and go and talk to somebody that you feel has fallen into your demographic section, start talking to them about geographics, and then start talking to them about psychographics. So all of those kind of things come together in who are you talking to. That's how we define our target audience. I'm just going to take a sip here. It's important to hydrate. When I take a sip, you should take a sip too. Thank you. So C, what are you saying to them? A, we figured out the difference between branding, sales, and marketing. B, we sat down and thought about who exactly is it we're talking to, and we're really defining them a little bit more. Now C, what are you saying to them? Can you see you can't, until you figure out exactly who those people are and take it steps past the demographic information, you can't try to craft a marketing message to them. Because in the example that I used with the nurses, every time we added something, the message would have changed until we got to the very end, psychographics, which it would change. If we were talking, we would have two segments maybe. We'd have one of the nurses, which were into the environmental and the outdoor stuff, and then we'd have maybe another nurse that was into something else. Well, you can't market to both of them. You've got to pick your number one. Who is the most likely to buy your product or service? And then we start saying, okay, here's what we're going to say to them. If we don't do that, we're going to try to make our message so vague that it doesn't attract anybody. If you try to say, well, I'm going to try to do a marketing message that's going to reach everybody, what ends up happening is you end up not reaching anyone in particular because your message is too vague and people don't pay attention to it. So what you're saying has to come after defining that target audience. So we go back to, why would somebody stand in line to do business with you? Okay. Well, mine was I wanted to miss out. For other people, it was a social experience. For other people, it was an educational experience. All of those are going to be different type messages. You can't try to find somebody that says, well, you don't want to miss out and you want a social experience, you want that. And I'm going to craft a message that all of those people are going to pay attention to. It isn't going to happen. Folks, you can always broaden your target audience, but if you start off with a broad target audience, you end up not talking to anyone. If you start it with a smaller audience, then you can build on that. Once you get those people and they know exactly what it is you do, then you say, okay, let's develop another persona for another audience. Could be very similar to the audience, second nurses, but it's a little bit different. And then you'll market to them a little bit different. And then once you've got them, you go out and broaden up again and you say, okay, who else can we market to? But you start off small. And usually you end up not talking to the general public, which is very expensive to do. But because you've done such a good job of talking to that small group of people, you'll start getting repeat business. And you may never have to branch out and talk to everybody. So what we want to really look at is these benefits that people use. And most of the time, a lot of people will do this first column, benefit statement. We provide better customer service. Greek yogurt is better for you. Soft tissues, Kleenex tissues, and this phone case won't break. Okay, those are all statements that you would read. You would see somebody say when they're doing a sales pitch, or when they're doing some social media, or on their website, or on their brochure. But that's the start of why would somebody stand in line. But boy, you've got to take that even a step further, and you got to prove it, because every consumer will always say, what's in it for me? So we provide better customer service. What's in it for me? Because what does that mean, we provide better customer service? That really doesn't mean anything, right? In this example, extended help desk, with phone lines open 24 hours, and there's a chat. Okay, so instead of saying we provide better customer service, you should be proving it to them and saying, hey, we've got great customer service because we have extended helplines and 24-hour chats. But even that, we need to take one more step further and create that messaging. So instead of saying we provide better customer services, hey, when you need answers, you can get them whenever. Hey, when you've got a question, you don't have to look for answers. You can come right here. Hey, you've got a problem, just start enjoying the purchase because we got all the answers. The Greek yogurt, let's balance from Greek yogurt is better for you to, okay, double the protein, half the carbs, half the sodium. Okay. We got to say that at some point. But the first message that we're saying to them is Greek yogurt makes you healthier. See, can you see the difference between what you're saying to them and the why stand in line? We've had to take it one step further. This phone case won't break. Okay, with this case, your phone will survive any fall. See the difference? These ones the messages are much more active. Those are much more right to the point, right? Instead of fluffy statements like Greek yogurt is better for you, it's get to the point. What's in it for me? Now, you will get all of these things put into your marketing material, but when you're wanting to reach out and grab people, you've got to start with the solid messaging. And that's what is it that you're saying to these people? So see, what are you saying to them? Okay, how do we go about grabbing their attention? It's all about them, folks. It really is. It's all about them. The average consumer is bombarded by about 3,000 messages every day. 3,000 messages every day. Of those messages, the brain remembers somewhere between 70 to 90. And the reason that they remember that is because those messages were pertinent to them. That something was said, Greek yogurt is healthier for you. Pay attention. This phone case will survive any fall. Pay attention. So with your marketing, you've got to actually create that pay attention thing. I want you to think about when you were coming to work today, if you're a home-based business, yesterday when you were driving around in your vehicle, think of all the messages that you actually saw. You might have listened to the radio, you might have read a newspaper online, offline, you might have watched some TV news, you might have driven down the street and saw a whole bunch of signage things, you might have saw some flyers come into your office. There's a whole bunch of marketing messages that came to you. Now, of all those marketing messages, how many do you remember? How many of those do you actually remember? Probably not very many. And the reason that maybe you don't remember them is because they were all coming at you. And your brain, it's marvelous. You've got to trust this brain because it's a marvelous thing. If the brain says, I don't need to know about that, spits it out. I don't need to know about that, spits it out. Oh, I need to know about that. Where am I going to put it? So the brain has all these categories, and once you or a consumer learn something, it says, what category should I put this in? If the message is not strong enough, it'll spit it out because it goes, either I don't know what that is, I don't need it, or I don't understand what that message is. But if your message is strong enough, it'll put it into the category. And once it's in that category, that's a marvelous thing, because whenever that consumer wants to buy whatever that product or service is, they'll go to that category in their brain and they'll say, what are my options? Now, if your message is strong enough, even if this doesn't fall into your target customer, they may remember that. Because there's an interesting thing that happens. Consumer buys when they want to buy, not when you want to sell to them. So just because you've done some marketing definitely doesn't mean that somebody's going to buy it right away. It's not like I bought a TV, so therefore I can plug it in and I can start watching it. Marketing doesn't work that way. Is people will think about things, okay, do I need that? Oh, I don't need that right now. And so they file that for future reference. And then when they need it, they'll go to that category and they'll say, hey, where should I go and buy this from? So what you want is your message to be so strong that it's going to be something that the brain will remember. And that's why we don't want to water our message down too much by trying to talk to everybody, because by talking to everybody, you end up talking to nobody in particular, and the brain doesn't remember it. So you've got to really think about what it is that you're saying, but then you've got to think about consistency. In marketing, consistency is gold. Say it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and then say it some more. In marketing, they say, when people are starting to go, oh, I'm kind of sick of that message, you still need to say it some more. For small business, it's hard to reach what we call the saturation point where people go, I'm sick of that message. You've probably heard some sort of marketing where you go, I'm just sick of that message. Well, that's reaching a saturation point, and now we've gone over the edge of the other, and now people are mad at you. With small businesses, folks, I'm going to tell you, it's hard for you to reach that saturation point simply because you don't have the budget to get people to be sick of it. And so then it becomes much more important for you to look at all parts of your brand. So what is your sales team saying? You know, I just had a meeting with a business the other day, and they've got 5 salespeople. And we were all sitting in the room, and I said, hey, so when you guys are out networking, write down what you say. And so all the 5 salespeople and the owner wrote down what they say. And you know what? We had 6 different messages. So what's happened with that, just in that one little thing, is they send out 6 different messages about that business. Now, a consumer or a target audience would hear that 1 or 2 of those from those people. They may see a marketing message from that, which may be very different from what the networking statement was, and they would get confused. People don't think, gee, I wonder if that business is the same business. They don't. They just go, okay, 2 different businesses, spit it out. Or, gee, that business, I don't know. They don't even seem to know what they want. A strong brand will really attract new customers to you because it shows that you know what you're doing. So your sales team, your customer service. So if your core philosophy, go back to the branding, if your silent promise has something to do with customer service in there, and you do something sloppy, then guess what? You've just fragmented your brand, and that's going to cause you some problems. Image and perception. I always say that your brand is what people say about you behind your back. So think about that for a minute. Yeah, I know you got to have strong shoulders, but what are people saying about your business when you're not in the room? That's what your brand is. Now, that's what you got to find out. Is that what your brand is? And is that what you want your brand to be? Because it could be two different things. So whatever that image or the perception is, if you want, I mean, that's what's great about being an entrepreneur. If you want to be known as the most expensive you can, the cheapest you can, the best service you can, and you can do that by creating a brand that says, this is us. So perceptions are reality when it comes to business, and you've got to find out what people's perception is of you. And again, that goes down into asking people honestly so that they will actually tell you a truthful statement. So you need the truth. Don't bother asking your friends and family. They lie to you because they don't want to hurt your feelings. Ask people that will really tell you the truth. And that's why I really am an advocate for an advisory board, or going to some of these breakfast clubs or entrepreneur clubs where you've got people in the room that really are there to help you and advance your business, and they won't tell you nice fuzzy things. They'll tell you the truth. Or hire a business consultant, because that's our job, is not to make you love us, it's to make us make your business better, and we tell the truth. Colors and fonts. This is really interesting when it comes to a brand. Colors and fonts are so important. We can do a whole webinar on colors and fonts. But just depending on the type of image that you want to project will be the font. If you want to be soft and warm and cuddly, that's what we're seeing universities and colleges are. They're softening up their fonts. They're putting them into like script fonts because they want to imply, we'll take care of your baby. Whereas banks, they're using really strong fonts because they want to say, we're solid, we're reliable. So just if you want to project that you're nice and comfortable and take care of people and do things to make them happy, and you've got a strong, bold font, well, right there, you're fragmenting your brand. Colors, purple is our corporate color. It's for power and solid and reliable. And that's what we want to project to our customers. But if you look at like a navy blue is a very powerful color for professional women. But for homemakers, it's too powerful for them. So if I'm marketing to stay-at-home moms and my corporate color is navy blue, then I've just turned them off. So think about that. Graphics and visuals, all of those have to speak to your message. Whatever you're saying to them, you have to have a marketing message that talks specifically to that messages, and that the graphics and the visuals that you use in your marketing material has to talk specifically to what are you saying to them. You have to match that, because if it doesn't, say you're a tire company and you're saying something about we'll protect your family with solid tires, and you have a picture of the tires, okay, that really doesn't talk to protecting the family. But if you've got a picture of a family in a car, that's talking to the family. So you really got to make sure that whatever graphics and visuals you use talk specifically to what it is you're saying to them. And then, of course, the content for your website, for your brochure, for your business card, they all have to use familiar words and phrases, not words and phrases that you're comfortable with, but words and phrases that your target customer is going to pay attention to. We did some work for a nonprofit, and it's interesting. The Globe and Mail is Canada's national newspaper, and they write to a grade 9 education, which at first blush you think, what? Grade 9 education? But that's how most people read, is to a grade 9 education. So I was working with a nonprofit group, and all of their marketing material was kind of very academic and educational. They were going after kind of families and families in crisis. And so we started to do personas. We found that their target customer were kind of immigrant families that had really, English was their second language. So all of the content we had for their marketing, we brought it down to a grade 5 education, because that's what most people in their target group were comfortable with. Well, we saw a huge, immediately increase of people coming to use their services, simply because before, these people were too intimidated to come because of the language that they were using. So familiar words and phrases. And then the last thing we want to think about is what emotions can you project? Because, boy, I'm telling you, emotions sell. Be passionate about your business, but what emotion is it that's going to make somebody buy your product or service? What emotion is that? Let's talk about emotions a little bit. I want you to think, look at this. This little kid is in a candy store, and I want you to think of your current customers as kids in a candy store. Okay? They've got lots of options. This little kid is standing in front of all these candies, and he's only got so much money to spend. What is he going to decide on? And that's our job, is to help them decide where they're going to spend the money. So the owner of this candy shop could say at first blush, well, the little kid's probably eyeing these and saying, wow, geez, I've only got so much money, and look at how much I'm going to get from that. But I'm a licorice freak, and I know that that licorice tastes like nothing. But right here, these candies here, they have a powerful flavor, and they last forever, and they're so good. Pretty small. So our job is to help this little boy decide that these may look good, but they aren't. But these are it. This is it. And so that's your job, folks, is to help your customers decide. Think of them as kids in candy stores. They got lots of selection. You help them decide where. So what are you saying to them? So this is a picture of my husband. We were cycling in Scotland, and it was hot. Strange, but Scotland was hot one day. And off we are. We're cycling away, and we decide that it's time to stop. And my husband says, I would just kill for a beer. And so we stop in the middle of nowhere, and they've got beer, and it's very expensive because it's in the middle of nowhere. Now, did my husband say, no, I'm not going to buy it? He said, no, I want that beer because we've been cycling for 80K. I'm thirsty, and I just could kill a beer. And so at this point, price is irrelevant to him. He didn't care that was, at that time, it was £6, and at that time, that was very expensive. It was $2.20. So he's paid almost $12 for that beer. Did he care? No. There is a point where the price is not the deciding factor, folks. So if you're getting lots of price objections, that means that you haven't found out what it is. What is their problem? What is their hurt, their pain, their problem, their upset, their whatever that makes them say, price is not the deciding factor. Why will I buy this? And price, at some point, price will come into play, folks. Of course it will. But what's their problem? Because no one buys without a problem. Whether that's real or perceived is irrelevant. It's just, what's the problem? So D, how will you reach them? So most of the people, we started off in business doing a lot of outbound marketing, and outbound marketing is where we push. It's one-way communication. So it's these things. It's radio, television, trade shows, all that. We're pushing information on them. But what's happened with outbound marketing, the cost is getting higher and higher, and the audience is getting smaller and smaller. And so it's getting very difficult to use outbound marketing. For small businesses, you don't have the money for outbound marketing, so guess what? You don't use it. But what you should be using is what we call inbound marketing, and that's your social media. And so you can see all of these things that will drive traffic to you. But remember, it's not about you, it's all about them. So when you're doing your social media marketing, and that's your online marketing, it's your blogging, and you're building content, and if you're doing videos and any kind of Facebook posts or any kind of social media posts, anything like that, you have to go, it's all about them. So don't sell. What we find with social media, it's all about sharing your knowledge. Position yourself as an expert. When people need your product and services, they'll come to you. There's a guy in my marketplace that does on his Twitter feed, he fixes computers. And all he puts on his feed is, I fix computers. And he does like 13 of those a day just into this marketplace. I fix computers, I fix computers, I fix computers. Okay, that's saturation, and it's annoying people. And people have come back and said, we know. A better message would be, hey folks, when was the last time you took a air blower and blew out the dust of your computer? Because dusty computers can crash your computer. Another post, hey folks, when was the last time you defragged your computer? I don't know too much about computers, so those are the only two things that my computer people have said to me. So those are all sharing your knowledge. You're not giving away the farm, you're just sharing your knowledge with those people so that they can see that you're an expert. So now, think about this. When somebody's computer starts to behave badly or it crashes, who are they going to contact? Somebody who says, I fix computers, I fix computers, I fix computers, or somebody who's been sharing information with them? Of course. And that's what social media is. So what I try to work on is 1 out of 25. one post out of every 25 is a sell message. Now I can get pretty creative with my messages that kind of works around that, says that I've got this product to sell, but for the most part, it's sharing your knowledge. That's what you can do. If you don't have money for the outbound, then you've got to use the inbound. But you can't just post every now and then. You've got to be consistent. You've got to have a plan about how you're going to use that social media. And then that's how you reach them, right? Using the right medium. So ABCs, first you got to understand what that is. You've got to be able to think about who you're talking to. You got to figure out what it is you're saying to them. And then you're going to have to think about how you're going to reach them. All of those things have to work together. You can't do one without the other. You can't do who you're talking to without realizing that you've got to use the right medium to talk to them in. Then you got a bullseye. So 45 minutes, right and bang on the nose. Thank you for that. And so let's see if we've got any questions. So I'm just going to flip over here because I've got the questions over here. So I'm not ignoring you. I'm just going to flip over. You can get to see the bad side. So a couple of questions we've got here. Okay. And while I'm answering these questions, if you've got any questions, go ahead, type in a question. And remember, all you do is go down to that, open your little arrow, go down to where it's question, type it in, and then hit the send button. So Kathy, I don't have money to market. Welcome to the world of small business. Yes, of course, Kathy, that's the biggest challenge for most small businesses, that they don't have that budget. There's a direct connection between how fast your business will grow and how much money you've got. And so if you don't have a lot of money, you can't beat yourself up if your business doesn't grow fast, because you just can't. But there's also a direct connection to how fast your business grows based on how much time you've got to market. So if you're so busy working for your business rather than working in your business, for your business, you're like an employee, you're doing all the work. In your business means that you're marketing your business. If you're so busy doing the work, you don't have the time to do the marketing part of it, your business will grow slower. And so I'm sure you want it to grow faster, but that's just the fact of the matter. So don't get yourself upset if all of a sudden you're not growing quicker than you expected. You got to go back and analyze that. But to tell you the truth, Kathy, you've just got to find the time. If you don't have the money, then you've got to find the time. I do all my social media marketing first thing in the morning. I've got a content list that I just can go and it gives me ideas, and I put them in and I do that marketing, and then it's done. It's out of my hair, and then I go work in my business. So that's what you've got to do, is you just got to find a way to do the time, because otherwise, if you don't have the money and you don't have the time, at some point your business is just going to stall. And that's not a good thing, and I don't want to hear about that. So you do have to find that time, whether that's just, think about it, an hour a day. Can you just find an hour a day? What I do with my sales courses, I get a calendar, just a regular desk calendar, not the ones on the phone, but a desk calendar. And I say to people, I want you to do one sales activity every single day. And let's just assume just for the week, not even talking about the weekends, but just for the week. But if you do one sales activity every day for a year, that's 260. There's absolutely no way that your business can't grow. And by putting it on that calendar and having that calendar right smack in front of your face, you can look, and it's a motivator, because you say, oh, gee, I didn't do any sales activity yesterday. I better do 2 today. It's a bit of a nag. And so it nags you to just say, okay, I mean, one sales activity could just be simply picking up the phone, phoning a past customer and just saying, hey, I'm just touching base. Do you need any product or service? Sometimes it could be a little bit more, which is cold call, but you can't just always do that passive kind of selling, because passive is a slow process too, right? Networking is a slow process. You go out and network, and then you go back and you go, gee, I hope somebody says something nice about me today so that somebody comes and buys. That's pretty passive. So you've got to get some personal selling in there, where you go knock on somebody's door, or you make an appointment with somebody, but you've got to do something every day, Kathy. I know I'm a coach, I'm a little bit harsh, but that's the reality. It's no sense saying just keep going the way you're going. If you don't have money, you don't have time. You've got to find one or the other. Stephen, I like your description of brand being the foundation. I've never done that. I had a name and a logo, and that's it. So where do I start? Well, Stephen, don't feel like you're alone. Everybody's like that. Everybody feels like that. So start with a brand. I think we've got one up online already. It's a past webinar, and it's called "A Logo's Not a Brand Unless It's on a Cow." And so go down and take a look at that. And it goes back to that brand foundation that we talked about and walks you all the way through building that brand. And so at the end of the 45 minutes, you've got a pretty good definition of how to build your brand. We're currently just working on a book called "A Logo's Not a Brand Unless It's on a Cow." We're hoping to have that out sometime in summer, if not the latest in the fall. But you've got to do that. You've got to build that brand. Carrie, where do I find out about research on target customers? Oh, that's an excellent question. There's, if you're looking at the social media end of things, there's hubspot.com, hubspot.com, and that gives you lots of information about social media and who uses it, what types they use. When I talk about it's all about them, not about you, I do that a lot for people who use Facebook to market, and that's their only marketing. And I'm not saying that it's bad to market, because Facebook can be very, very beneficial in marketing Facebook if your target customer's on Facebook. But if the only reason, and this is what people have said, the only reason that I'm marketing on Facebook because I'm familiar with the interface and I know how it works, that is a horrible reason to market if your target customer isn't on Facebook. Let's say in that case, your target customer is on Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter, then guess what? You've got to learn those interfaces and use Facebook for your personal stuff, but don't market on it if your target customer isn't there. So hubspot.com will give you those kind of stats. Another one is Mashable, Mashable.com, and they've got some stats on that. As far as other stats, take a look at the radio stations. Radio stations are excellent in defining target customers. Just ask for a media kit. They'll probably ask you to buy and just say, well, right now I'm not going to buy, but I just want a media kit. But in that media kit, it'll talk to you about the demographics and psychographics and income and everything about the area that you're operating in. Stats Canada has some. Go to your economic development, your Chamber of Commerce. Those all have some. Those are all free resources. I'd say an hour a day doing your social media marketing, time versus money, and probably an hour a day doing some research on your target customer. And that can be done when you're sitting watching TV. You know, it's kind of grunt research. You don't really need to be really overly alert. So you can be watching TV or listening to music or something like that, going for a walk and still just digging into the online, just digging in online. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you this, BDC.com, Business Development Bank of Canada, BDC.com. They're one of my customers. I help them when they lend money to people and people need help with their sales and marketing. They pull me in as the coach. But their website has crazy amount of research on that. So go and spend some time on BDC.ca, BDC.ca. They've got a whack of information on there for you, just full of information. Oh, thank you, Maureen. Hi, Maureen. I know Maureen. Where's your book available to purchase? Thank you for that. We have a book called Sales Suck, Now What? And it's $19.95. Sorry about that. And it's available off our website, or if you live in the community, Maureen, you live in the community that I operate in, just give me a call, drop me an email, and I can pop it over. You can pay me that way. Otherwise, if you do it offline, if you're outside of our community, then you're going to have to pay for shipping, and that's like $5. So just if you're in my area, Southern Alberta is my area, then we can arrange for some sort of, I drop it off, you pick it off, something like that. Thanks for that, Maureen. Thanks for that sell pitch for me. Tammy, standing in line, that's an interesting thing. We have always prided ourselves on customer service. So I think I kind of talked a little bit about that, and that's excellent that you've got customer service, and customer service kicks in after you've got the sale. What sales is all about is bringing new customers to you. So what we want you to do is new customers. So customer service at the end of all of the things that you're trying to get them to pay attention to, you can say, and we have great customer service, and here's how we prove it. Remember, prove it. But you're going to have to find another message than customer service. What we're finding now, that customer service customer service just turns people off, because they've had so many people out there that have given really bad customer service. Okay, lots of questions on psychographic information. Lots and lots and lots of questions on that. So yeah, and I expect that because that is so unusual. You do have to dig into that. So if you have current customers, that's what I want you to do. Go back and analyze them. Every business should have some sort of documentation on your customer. How you do that, whether that's just a piece of paper that's got, you know, name, address, phone number, here's the work that I did for them, here's some of the things that they said, blah, blah, blah. Or if you have a profile in QuickBooks, or if you have a CRM, customer relationship management software program that keeps track on them. But when you're talking with these people, just even starting to talk with them, they haven't even sold, you've got some sort of documentation, and everything that they start talking about, you start recording, and you start analyzing, you know, how did they act when I came in? How were, you know, what was their office like? If you've ever taken like a True Colors or Personality Plus or any kind of personality profiling, those can tell you a lot about people too. So start to really just pay attention, and then you start to put people in segments. And that's where you develop your personas. So I would encourage you to really think about, if you're struggling with this and you can't get those segments down yourself, to take our personas webinar. It's coming up down the road, but it's really strong in helping you figure out that demographic information, or sorry, that psychographic information. There's stats out there too. You might have to dig in. Just type in psychographic information on mothers with kids, psychographic information on baby boomers, psychographic information on millennials, and you'll see things will come up. Now, one of the things we know about the web is make sure that you're looking at a reliable source, and, you know, kind of verify. If you're reading a blog and they're saying blah, 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 and then you find another blog and it counteracts that, then you got to start digging around and seeing, get 3 verifications for that kind of message, and then you can say, okay, you know, that's probably good information. But psychographic is the hardest, and that's why we got lots of you asking that question, because psychographics is the hardest to do. Got a couple more minutes, yeah. Tamara, regarding what you're saying to them, we have so many things to offer. Yeah. And, you know, I think that's the mark of a true entrepreneur, is that we can help so many people with so many things. And then you try to tell them all those things. But what happens is people don't remember lists. And you can probably be able to verify this yourself. If you're at a networking session and somebody says to you, so what is it you do? And you go, oh, we blah, 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 and you list off these things, and their eyes kind of glaze over and they go, oh, excuse me. That means that you've overwhelmed them. And you can't overwhelm them because the brain doesn't know where to put anything. So what you want to do is find that one thing, that one key message. And like where we got our frustration from, I would love to say that I'm a genius that we came up with that. We didn't. We asked our customers. About in year 2, I sent out a survey. You know, we're kind of our own worst enemies, right? And so I thought, I wonder why these people keep doing business with me. You know, because we've got the devil on our shoulder, and the angel, she rarely talks. The devil's always saying, you're an idiot. Nobody likes you. Nobody wants to do business with you. And so I sent out the survey to all these people that had done repeat business with me. It was like, why? You know, thanks, but why? And I put it in. I said, this is anonymous, and I put in an envelope, put the stamp on it. And just come back and tell me one thing, because that's all the brain can remember is one thing. And they all came back with some sort of thing about frustration, us taking that frustration away. So I went, giddy up. If it works for them, chances are it's going to work for somebody else. And I've been using that we're going into our 25th year, and I've been using that for 23 years. Now, am I sick of saying we all take the frustration out of your branding, sales, and marketing? I am. But it still resonates with the target customers and the people who could use my services. So it doesn't matter whether I'm sick of saying it. I'm going to repeat it because it still strikes a chord. So that's what you have to do. All of those things that you're doing, that's great. And you'll eventually get a chance to tell them that in your brochure or your sales pitch or your website. But you've got to find that number one thing. That's all that the brain can remember. That number one thing, and you say it over and over and over again. And again, go back to your brand. Make sure that your sales team are saying it. Everybody's saying the same thing. So, just bear with me if you got to go. I just got one quick question, but I think it's relevant. Chuck, are you saying we shouldn't use outbound marketing? Because I like radio, and I'm going to tell you, in some marketplace, in my marketplace, radio is really good. In some of the larger center, there's so many radio stations, it's hard. I'm not saying that at all. It would be beautiful if you could do a mix of inbound and outbound marketing, so time and money, but depending on whether you got both. So if you thought that I said don't ever use outbound, I apologize for that. That's not the case at all. Outbound marketing still works. Outbound marketing works by the advertising. The newspaper's there because of the advertising. The radio's there because of the advertising. The TV's there because of the advertising. If there's no advertising, there would be no medium. If the people aren't getting benefits, they wouldn't advertise. People wouldn't spend $3 million on a Super Bowl ad if it didn't work. So it's great to find a mix, but what I find is that unless you're getting into maybe your 5, 6, and 7, where you're more established, you got a little bit more money, outbound just doesn't seem to happen with small business because you just don't have the money. So I've gone a few minutes over your time. I apologize if you had to run off, but you will be getting a copy of this probably sometime today. I'll send you an email. We will put you on our email list that will give you notifications of our next ones. We've got some happening. If you know anybody that's thinking that they're currently working, they're thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, you got to tell them to come to this one, because there's a whole bunch of things that people can do. They can build their brand. They can get all these things done that cost money while they still got their paycheck. So please give the gift of entrepreneurship to somebody and tell them they've got to come to this one. You can see we got a whole bunch of other webinars coming up. Go onto our website, wildcommunications.ca. We'll send you the link, and when I send you the link, I'm going to say, so you get your 20-minute thing. What I'll normally ask you to do is contact me by email. We'll start kind of digging around. Can we do it at this day? Can we do it at this day? I've been known to help people from time to time in the evenings and weekends if that's the only time that you can do an online coaching session. But I want a time that you're going to be 100% devoted to our conversation, because you got 20 minutes. It's really valued at $75, so take advantage of it. So that's it. Thank you very much for coming in. I hope we've kicked your butt a little bit to get your marketing started, and very much appreciate it. Thank you. You just need to go up to the file and webinar, or on your tablet to the left-hand side and click on that, and it'll end the webinar. Thank you. And I'm going to end it now.